welcome to Being Beta, where today I'm going to be taking you through how to make a vegetable patch using scaffolding planks or any planks that you have to hand. A fair bit of equipment as well as the materials to grab. You're going to need a pair of gloves that are a bit more dexterous but stop you getting splinters, then some hard wearing gloves for when you're doing cutting of the wood, hearing protection and glasses for that also. Some screws, sort of medium sort of size, to put these sort of end panels of the veg patch into the stakes, and then some longer either screws or nails to put the actual planks on, the long planks onto the stakes. A club hammer, that's going to really help when you're bashing in nails if you're using nails, and then a smaller claw hammer just so you can do the more gentle taps to that. A shovel or spade, you're going to need a set square when it comes to doing your cuts, a pencil and a tape measure, and then your circular saw and either a hand drill or an impact driver as well. I've gone for an impact driver in this case. Again, I will try and use cordless just so I can do work on the actual place where I'm going to be putting the veg patch itself. So at the moment we're just doing our planning. Again, time spent on planning will save a bit of time later. So what we've decided on doing is using these scaffolding planks. We're going to have a couple of strips of veg patch, and then we've got these boxes as well that we're going to put in. So we just need to site them first. So we're going to use our shed as the gauge for where to orientate this rear plank, pop it exactly where we want it, and then we can take all the other planks off of that alignment then. Cool, so basically in terms of determining where we want the rear panel of this rear veg patch to go, we're just using the lawnmower to try and save ourselves a bit of time. We want to go the width of the lawnmower, or maybe just a tad beyond. So that's what we're using. We're just going to run the lawnmower up and down and then move the plank to the edge of the lawnmower. Okay, so having decided how close we want the rear plank to the shed, we then just evened up either end to make sure it runs parallel to the shed. And now this is where you can use either a line marker paint, or you can use talcum powder, or get a spade and just score that line right the way down, and then that's your first line that then you can work off. So with the second plank, we decided how wide we wanted the veg patch itself, and I just went off, if we want 2 rows of potatoes, which would be one of the larger crops we're growing, you want that space for 2 mounds. So that's why I chose this width. So then we just made sure we've got the same distance from there to there, same on the other side, and then we've just lined it up with a shed to make sure if we need to shift this plank along either way or the other. So now I'm going to line marker again on the inside of the plank. Cool, so what we've decided between the actual veg patches themselves is to have a couple of widths of lawnmower. That allows us to get wheelbarrows in and out. Again, any gardening tools, any digging that we need to do, we'll have plenty of space between veg patches to do that rather than having it too cramped up. So now we're going to just line mark this next one. Okay, so I've marked off where the veg patch will go nearest the shed, where the next one's going to go just along here. We're going to leave the boxes for now, so once we've got these sighted, then that's when we're going to come back and sort out the boxes in a bit. Next thing I'm going to do then is just the classic trench digging. Just begin to lift the top layer of grass and soil off, and then I can start to work the soil, turning it over, mixing the compost and getting the planks in as well. So in terms of digging out the veg patch, first part of the process, the technique I'm going to be using for deturfing is basically scoring a line right the way along the perimeter of where the scaffolding planks are going to go. So literally just pop the spade in, jump on it both feet, drive it into the ground, and then lean back and lift the turf, shoving your foot in to lift. Okay, so it's quite hard work this, so make sure you are pacing yourself, or get someone younger and fitter to sort it out for you. But in terms of the next stage, I've got the old trusty wheelbarrow just off to one side. I'm now going to start to de-turf. Okay, now it's up to you. What you could do if you wanted was score another line, and then you can de-turf and just fold it back and it'll peel back into the rolls of turf, and then load that into the wheelbarrow. Or So again, you could repeat that a couple of times, a couple of lines, or like I'm going to do, I'm just going to start at one corner. I'm just going to drive in the shovel and lift, keep driving in under there, just lift as much out as I can, dump it into the wheelbarrow, and just do that all along. So it's going to be pepper potted, it's not going to be nice neat rolls, but that's fine for me. So I'm about 5-10 minutes into this, so you can absolutely see it's a marathon, not a sprint. So do take your time with this one. I know I keep reiterating, there's no point thrashing yourself or injuring yourself doing this. Build in plenty of breaks, nice cup of tea, nice chill out, and also take the opportunity to have a look at the condition of the soil. So as you're digging this, we've got quite clay soil where we are here in Wiltshire, so just have a look, but have a look at all the sort of organisms that you can see in here in terms of worms, earwigs, ants, all that sort of stuff, and it'll give you a good indication as to the health of your soil. And I know you can send soil samples away to get an idea of like nitrogen content and acidity and all of this sort of stuff, but just a visual check will give you an idea where you're at really. Also, as you're deturfing, let me give you an example here. So I'm just going to pull this bit up. You don't need to chuck the whole lump into the wheelbarrow itself. So not only will that make the wheelbarrow heavy, but actually what you can do at this stage, if you just begin to shake off any excess, begin to crumble off anything off the bottom of the grass roots, that's almost helped till your soil and get it a bit finer, so it's easier for the roots to grow on the veggies. So again, you're sort of doing two jobs with one task here. So in terms of the stakes themselves, all I've got here is a long piece of wood that's about 2 inches length by 1.5 inches in width or depth, which is about 40 mil by 50 mil. And then literally I'm just going to lay it along the scaffolding plank that I'm using, and I'm just going to do it by eye and round up the number to how much longer I want the stake to go into the ground. So literally I'm just going to put the tape measure along. Yeah, I reckon I can get it to stay on. I reckon about another about to there is how far I probably want it to go into the ground, which is about 14 inches. So I'm just going to mark that off on the wood. So I marked off on the tape measure where I want, and now I'm going to just use the set square pressed against the wood to get a nice straight line that I can cut through with the circular saw. Okay, so I've cut my 4 stakes for each corner of the veg patch. Again, if you want to, you could say taper the edges where the bottom of the stake's going to go, so you get an easier seat when you hammer into the ground. But the ground I'm hammering into is pretty wet, it's pretty soft, so I'm just going to leave this flat and then just give it a good hammer down to seat it in place. Okay, so after a fair bit of graft, we finally deturfed the veg patch itself. And I'll be honest, I don't have all the answers, so I'm going to go for a bit of an experiment now. So I've started by just putting the stakes in either corner, and I'm going to put the scaffolding plank in place and then see if I can actually get the nails low enough, basically. If that doesn't work, what I'll do on this side is attach the stakes to the plank first and then knock it in, which might make more sense, to be fair. In terms of turf that you've got left over, it doesn't look very tidy at the moment, but there's quite a drop off from the concrete path down onto the lawn that my kids kept tripping up on. So I've built a bit of a slope up here. Again, I need to go through, compress it all, and then also use some turf again, go around the perimeter of the chicken run. Again, just pressing it down on top of the skirt. The skirt was already dug in, but just pressing it down on top. So I needn't have worried, it's worked absolutely fine. So popping the stakes in first, positioning the plank, then knocking in 2 nails. Again, there's a good few inches between those 2 nails, so more than sufficient. The only couple of sort of top tips is the nails that I'm using are obviously longer than the plank and the stake. So just make sure if you've got weight behind here, keeping the stake in place, just be really careful you don't push that nail through into your foot or anything like that. And then once it's come through on this side, just make sure you knock it down into the wood, and then you're not going to catch your hands or anything like that in future when you're in the veg patch itself. All I've done after that then is just scraped all of the soil to prop it up so it's nice and vertical. I have got a lip on this side, so again I could infill if I've got any topsoil at a later stage, but for now happy with that. Just going to repeat that on this side and then on to the next step. So I thought I'd trial it the other way now. So I've pre-placed the stakes on the ends of the scaffold planks. I'm then going to basically position it in the veg patch and then hammer down each end, hammer the stakes down into the ground and just see how we get on. Certainly in terms of stakes, it's been a lot easier to hammer in because you're not having to fiddle around trying to keep the plank propped up and then it's not kicking the stake out as you hammer the nail in from the other side. So in terms of placing the stakes, it's been easier. We'll see how we get on when we place the plank. Right, so on balance, pre-placing the stakes into the plank has made it a bit easier in terms of then once it's in position, just hammer it straight into the ground and it's done. It's all nailed and all the rest of it. The only thing is though, I would recommend if you're going to do it that way, have someone else as well, okay? Because I tried doing it on my own with the stakes pre-placed and it's really quite challenging to get the plank to stay vertical whilst you're hammering it in. So if there's two of you, absolutely do it this way. Hammer the stakes in on the plank already, then sight it, have someone hold it and whack it in. If not, hammer the stakes in first and then you just have a bit of a pain on your own just hammering the nails in. But that's probably the best way on your own. That's the best way if there's two of you. So the next thing I want to do now is determine where I want the end lengths, if you like, of the veg patch. So I need to cut these to length. So all I've done here is one end of the length is going to sit against here and then the other end is going to sit on the inside of the plank on here. So I've just laid it across the top. Again, you decide how snug you want the bit, but just pressing the plank down. I want to roughly cut it a bit short. I don't mind if it's a little bit short. So I'm going to cut it about there. I'm going to mark this off again using my right angle so I get a nice straight line, and then use the circular saw to cut this particular length. Okay, so the end panel's now in place. All I had to do was pop in, I used 4 wood screws, 2 on this side, 2 on the other side, just using the impact driver. And the only top tip is just to be aware of the nails that have already come through. So just try not to hit those nails with the screws as you come through. But I'm just gonna now repeat this process. So popping the end plank across the top, seeing the length that I want, cutting it to the correct length, and then again attaching it on the ends using the wood screws. Cool, so as always, thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, share and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.